Hi everyone, this is Ethan from the Bancho Boys. Today I'm going to be discussing two options, X-Antibody from BT9 and X-Antibody Protoform from EX5. I've noticed a lot of questions recently where people are asking which of the two options is better, which one that they should be running in their deck, and why people prefer one or the other. So with this video, what I want to do is discuss the different benefits between the options, why you might choose to run one over the other, and ultimately decide which of the two is the better option. Up first, we have X-Antibody. This is a white zero-cost option that was released in BT9. You can ignore the color requirement if you control a Digimon, which allows it to be used in any deck even though it is white. You don't actually have to control a white Digimon or Tamer. The way it works is when you activate it, you slot it under your Digimon as its bottom source. When you attack with that Digimon, you can activate the X-Antibody inherited effect to digivolve into a Digimon with X-Antibody in its traits. Some benefits of this card are that it can be slotted under any Digimon, regardless of whether it has the X-Antibody trait or not, and it does not have to be used at that time to immediately digivolve up a form. So you could slot this under a card and then not utilize its effect until later in the turn, or potentially not utilize its effect at all. Additionally, it cannot be trashed from sources, which means that against a source strip deck, you cannot have this option removed, which can be beneficial for ensuring that you can retain sources in your stack rather than being stripped all the way down to nothing. Additionally, its security effect is gain 1 memory and then add this card to your hand. This is slightly better than the Protoform security effect, which only adds to the hand without gaining a memory. Another thing to note with this card is that the inherited effect does not have a turn limit. So if you are able to attack multiple times in one turn, you can actually activate this effect multiple times as well. This was really notable with decks such as MetalGarurumon back in BT9. Next, we have X-Antibody Protoform. This is a white zero-cost option that was released in EX5. As with the original X-Antibody, you can ignore the color requirement of this card if you control a Digimon. Additionally, it has a rule where it is always treated as X-Antibody, which matters for a number of Digimon effects, namely X-Antibody Searcher cards, as well as X-Antibody Digimon that require having either the correct name or the X-Antibody option in their sources. The way this option works is you activate it, then you digivolve into a Digimon with the X-Antibody trait from your hand with its Digivolution cost reduced by 1, and then you slot in Protoform as the bottom source of that Digimon. After that, the Digimon gains an inherited effect during all turns if it would be removed from the field except by your effect. You first return one of the sources of that Digimon to your hand, and then you recover X-Antibody Protoform to the top of your security stack. The biggest benefit of this card is its inherited effect. This allows you to first get pieces back to the hand, which can be helpful if you have built up a stack and you have used up some of your pieces that you maybe only had one of. Additionally, it then recovers to security, and it has a security effect where when your opponent hits it in security, it will add to your hand. This means that Protoform can be used multiple times in the course of a game very easily. The same Protoform can be looped multiple times, and it can also allow you to cycle pieces multiple times back to hands. For longer games or games where you want a lot of piece recursion, this one helps out quite a lot. Additionally, it does, of course, reduce the Digivolution cost by 1, which can be a big deal for either retaining turn when you're going from, say, the level 6 to its X-Antibody counterpart, or when you're going up from one tier to the next. So say if you're at level 4 and you're digivolving into a level 5, you can now do it for 1 cheaper than usual, which can be a big difference in some situations. So returning to the question of which option is better, unfortunately, it's not a clear-cut decision. Protoform has a lot of strengths that are unique to it, but it's not a direct drop-in replacement for the original X-Antibody. It ultimately comes down to what your deck's needs are and what your individual playstyle is with that deck. For example, Greymon gets a lot of benefit from the when attacking effect of the original X-Antibody, so it would tend to prefer that card. On the other hand, a deck like Numamon gains virtually no benefit from the original X-Antibody, but it gains a lot of benefit from Protoform's piece recursion and recovery effects, which play very directly into how the deck wants to play anyway, spamming bodies on the board that didn't get deleted. Then you have decks like MetalGarurumon and Leviamon that can gain benefits from either of the two options. They might choose to run one fully over the other, or they might even run a mixture of the two. I'm going to be showing some gameplay of those two decks to help illustrate the benefits of each option and why you might choose to run one over the other. All right, so starting off with MetalGarurumon, we have a stack here with Gabumon, Garurumon, Garuru-X, and then we have a WereGaruru on top. So let's look at some different things we can do depending on if we have X-Antibody or X-Antibody Protoform. So starting off with X-Antibody, Protoform to the side. When we swing with Garurumon, we could swing, Digivolve into Garurumon X, unsuspend, bounce something, and now we are in position to swing again after that. So this is pretty cool if you need to clear a blocker or if you want to clear something that your opponent is planning on acing on top of before your swing goes through. You could do something similar with EX5 Garurumon X, swing, Digivolve into it for 1, unsuspend. But there's really not as much value in this particular play because you're not bouncing anything. You're kind of just Digivolving as part of the swing, but you could very easily just Digivolve afterwards. You didn't even need X-Antibody to do. Another example is with MetalGarurumon X. So if we swing with X-Antibody, we can go up a tier. Very similar to what we did with WereX. We've gone up for 4, probably past turn, but we've bounced something and we've set up a blocker as part of doing that. On the other hand, if we have, say, MetalGarurumon Ace, we can swing this, activate the when attacking effect of Ace, delete something, then activate our X-Antibody, Digivolve into Metal X, unsuspend, bounce. Again, our check goes through, we establish blocker. We only spent 1 there, so we likely still have turn and can swing again from that point if we want to. So those are some examples of the original X-Antibody. Now let's look at X-Antibody Protoform. We can accomplish a lot of the same plays. It's just going to be a matter of when we actually get our removal. So here, if we have Protoform, we can swing our Garurumon Ace. The check will go through. Afterwards, we'll Digivolve into Garurumon X, unsuspend, and bounce something, and then we can swing again. You can see in this case, we actually didn't even need to use Protoform because we went up for 0, but we can still slot it in if we want to gain its inherited effect. On the other hand, if we're going into Garurumon X, swing Protoform, go up into Garurumon X for 0, in this scenario, we've actually gained a real benefit here because we've gone up for 0 instead of 1. So when we're going into the EX5 Garurumon X, generally Protoform is going to be preferable there, whereas with the BT9, depending on the situation, the original X-Antibody can be preferable. If there's nothing that you specifically needed to bounce, then it doesn't really matter either way. Either option works in that case. Similar thing we run into with the MetalGarurumon X. We can swing the Ace here. We can activate Protoform to Digivolve into MetalGarurumon X for free after the swing. Bounce some stuff, or for 3, excuse me. Bounce some stuff, and then if we retain turn, then we can swing again. Otherwise, we've set up a blocker that has this Protoform in its sources to add to security and give something back if we lose this stack. So in this case, we're not getting the bounce until after the swing goes through, just like with the WereX. But if we didn't need it on the front end, then this can be good. Similar type of thing can happen, say, with MetalGarurumon. So if we're at MetalGarurumon, we want to swing, unsuspend, swing again, and then Protoform up. We can go up for free and then swing again after that. So Protoform, you can see, becomes kind of the preferred card if you don't need those front-end removals. Basically, when we're not gaining a benefit from the when attacking effect of the original X-Antibody, then Protoform becomes the superior choice. Now, I also wanted to briefly look at a couple scenarios that are unique to each option that you can't really emulate directly with the other option. So first, let's start with X-Antibody. So if we're at MetalGarurumon, and we have X-Antibody in our sources. One of the famous plays you can do is once you've done all your swings with MetalGarurumon, you go into Omnimon, you unsuspend, and then you blitz. When you do that, you activate the X-Antibody inherit, the Digivolve into BT10 OmniX for 1. You trash a card from your opponent's security, remove some stuff on their board, and then your swing will go through. If that was the last security, then you're actually swinging for game. That was a pretty famous way of ending game with this deck. You see this in Leviamon as well. And that is something that cannot be directly emulated by X-Antibody Protoform. It doesn't really have a way to do that unless you just had a lot of memory that you were able to retain turn going up the stack. On the other hand, Protoform can be utilized with lower stack in ways that the original X-Antibody can't. So let's say that we just have Gabumon, right? Well, if we don't have Garurumon, we can do something where we say activate Protoform and then go directly into Garurumon X for what ends up effectively costing 1. Whether you're going into the old BT9 or the new EX5, it's going to effectively cost 1 either way. Of course, in this case, you're also going to gain some draws And then from there, you can go further up the stack. Or if you want, you can even swing the Garuru X. If it lives, awesome. If it doesn't, you recover Protoform to security, add the Gabumon back to hand, and you're good to go from there. This is also pretty nice if you are able to do something like slot in X-Antibody, and then say Digivolve up into a Were-Garuru from here. Now, if this Were-Garuru happens to die, either on your turn or the opponent's turn, you actually get back your Garuru X to hand, recover the same kind of thing. It's very nice with these limited pieces to allow you to reuse them multiple times in a game. All right, next I wanted to talk through some examples of these two options used in Leviamon. So we'll start off with the original X-Antibody again. Let's say we've got just our level 3 Byakumon on board. Maybe we do something like we Digivolve up Octomon, and then we're wanting to try to force our opponent to play something onto the board to allow us to Digivolve into Levia X from trash. So what we can do is we can slot X-Antibody into our stack, Digivolve into Dragomon, force our opponent to play something out, and now because we have X-Antibody in the stack, we can go into Levia X, delete some stuff, and if we've retained a turn, we're going to get 3 checks, which is pretty huge. So the nice thing that we're able to do here is that because Dragomon does not have X-Antibody in its traits, you cannot normally use Protoform to go into him, but you are able to still slot X-Antibody into the stack beforehand to have it in sources when you're needing it to go into the Levia X afterwards. You can do the same type of play, or very similar play, with Warusidramon. If you have X-Antibody in the sources, swing it, activate its when attacking effect, force your opponent to play something out, go into Levia X. Another thing that X-Antibody grants you is that even if your opponent doesn't have any bodies in trash to play out, you can still always swing and Digivolve into Levia X for 6. Obviously, that's going to be very costly, but since you're Digivolving during the attack, your checks are actually going to go through, and you might still, remove some things off their board. So that can sometimes be a play that you can do if you really, are in a pinch. On the other hand, when we look at X-Antibody Protoform, we gain access to some pretty interesting plays that the normal X-Antibody doesn't grant. So the first is that we can use Protoform when going from 3 to 4 into Dober X, or also the EX5 Garuru X, to go up for effectively 1. We then draw and trash, and then from here, if we want to go further up the stack, we can. Like, we could actually do our play we were talking about before, where we go up to Dragomon, play something out of trash, go into Levia X again, because we have Protoform in the stack now. But if we're still in the phase of the game where we're setting up, then we can actually just chuck this at our opponent's security. If it dies, then we recover Protoform to security, get the level 3 back to hand, which can be nice because Levia runs a little bit trimmer lineup of level 3s relative to some decks. And we've got some aggression, we've recovered some security, and we've also done some drawing and trashing. This can be particularly valuable if you have, say, the ST16 Gabumon in sources, because you get another draw and trash when you swing, or also if you have the BT14 Goblimon, then you'll gain a memory off the trashing, so you go from 3 to 4 for effectively 0 with the Protoform. You can do a similar thing when you're Digivolving from 4 to 5 into Cerberus X. So you Protoform, you Digivolve into Cerberus X for 2, and since you have X-Antibody in the sources, you get to activate Cerberus X's effect to pull a level 3 out of your trash, which can be pretty cool if you have something that you're wanting to either activate its on play, or if you want to play out, say, the Rush Gilmon and chuck that at your opponent, things like that. And this, of course, in this particular deck is also, makes it much more memory efficient to actually go up your line. You could also, if you really needed to, do Protoform the Digivolve into Levia X for 5. Probably not going to be an advisable play most of the time, but there could be scenarios where that happens. If you had Leviamon in the stack, you could, of course, go into this for 1 on top of Leviamon as well. But again, possibly not the best use of resources. It kind of just depends on what your hand and your board state is like. So Protoform is pretty strong during the phase of Levia where you're setting up, when you're kind of just building different stacks. And being able to repeatedly throw it into security and then back to hand over and over again can make it very difficult for your opponent to actually finish you off, considering that you have a lot of strong options in there already that they might get tripped up by. So those are some of the comparisons between those two options for the Levia X deck. That's all that I have to show today. I hope this has been helpful in illustrating the benefits of each of these options, why you might use one over the other, and hopefully these Hopefully this can help you in the future with other decks, decks that maybe don't even exist today, to decide which you would rather run there. Thanks for watching. This is Bancho Ethan, signing off. What do you think about that? Which it's still actually recording right now.